Hi, this video walks through how to build a SvelteKit app with Keycloak for authentication. It's specifically multi-tenant and handles new tenants dynamically at runtime. All right, let's get started. Create your app with the SvelteKit template, the project TypeScript, sure. The instructions for how to integrate this library are below. Let's follow along and do them one at a time. First, let's add the library to the project. Let's open package.json, run yarn add, and there's our dependency. Now, for step one, add the env file for our project. This is used when you're running in dev or preview mode. If you run this out of a container following the Git example, the infrastructure provides the environment variables and will override whatever values you set here. All right, now let's add the environment variables. The first one is the path to the Keycloak OIDC APIs that we're going to use for authentication. Second, we have the path that's used from the SvelteKit backend to reach the Keycloak server. If you're running this in a containerized environment, it's going to stay within a private network. Then it's going to be the configuration of the login path. We'll be creating routes for the login and the logout next. Now let's add support for the user metadata in locals so that we can use that in our pages, routes, and layouts. And that's it. Next step. Step 3, add the hooks.server file. hooks.server.ts. And you can copy paste what's in the example there. Here you can see the handle function that is from the library, and we're using SvelteKit dynamic environment variables, which basically mean we're going to use the values in .env if there's not other values set. So for running this in development mode or in preview mode, it's going to use whatever's in the .env file. But if you're running this from a container or something else and the infrastructure is providing it, it's going to pull those values first. Step 4, let's add the login form. We're going to go into routes. We're going to create a folder called app. I'm going to move this generic page under that. Now let's add routes. And I'm using the plugin for SvelteKit that makes it easier in VS Code to add routes. Login, and for the login, we only need page.svelte. We don't need a backend for this. And all that's required minimally in the login is a basic form that has an input with type text. The name is email, and you have to post this with action login. As long as you have that, that's sufficient. You could style it however you want, use whatever UI components you want, but as long as a form posts to login with an input of type text and name email, that's all we need. So our login route is done. Let's add an additional route now for the logout. For the logout route, we need both a page and the backend server file. The logout route requires a server page such that the handle function is forced to invoke, such that it clears the locals, it terminates the session, and will cause the cookies to expire on the page landing. And for the logout page itself, you could do whatever you want in the Svelte page. For the logout, we're just going to have a message showing that you've logged out and click to log back in. Next, let's add a layout. Under app, we're going to add a new route. And we're going to say layout server and layout page. There we go. All right, in the server page, we are just going to expose to the Svelte page information from locals. You can see we need to pull in the event, server load event, and that's it. Now in the layout, we can conditionally render information about the user. You can see their tenant, their email, and different roles. We also want to put a logout link, and in the logout link, you have to specifically set it to not preload because we want a server-side response. When we get a server-side response, that's when that handle function is going to terminate the session. It's going to clear the locals, and it's going to cause the cookies to expire. Last, let's create a tenants.yaml file that's used to map email domains to Keycloak realms. Tenants.yaml It's got to be in the root of the project. And here's 2 different tenants that we have set up. You can add dynamically to this at runtime, and the library will update this list. If it can't find a mapping between the email domain to a realm, it's just going to redirect back to the login. All right, so let's take this for a drive. Yarn run dev. We're going to go into here and we're going to log in as one of the users. Here you can see we're going to go to our realm for cats first. We'll log in as Fluffy. Cats.com, there you go. Takes us to Keycloak under the realm for cats, so that's our provider. We've got our password, logs back in. Here you can see the tenant, the email, and roles that are configured. Fluffy was a member of the admin's role. We can configure roles and groups all in Keycloak, and that's available to your app automatically. Now let's log out. Let's log in as a different user. So we'll say Sparky. We'll do rough at dogs. All right, rough at dogs.edu. There you go. You could see the dogs realm is here. So this is where we have that fully federated authentication, such that each tenant can have completely different security rules for authentication. You could set up one with multi-factor authentication, the other with differing password complexity rules. Here you can see we've got barks and admins, whatever we wanted to set up for roles and groups from Keycloak. Again, that's all available in the app. And that's it. Last, we're going to add a tenant dynamically and show that we don't have to restart the app or push an update to get this new provider for the new tenant. So we're going to create a new realm. We'll call it mice. And we're going to create a client. This is what's used for authentication. We'll call it web app. Call it whatever you want. This is the name that's used in the YAML file. You have to select client authentication to on. We're going to save it. Things you have to have set up here for your client. Make sure that we have a valid redirect URL. Have your domain prefix here and a wildcard at the end. If you have deep links that you're landing on when you're not authenticated, after authentication, you'll be redirected automatically by the handle function to the original landing URL. So that's why we want to have this set up here. Now that the client's configured, let's just set up the realm roles. We're going to create admins and groups. Let's make an admins group. We're going to map that to the role. All right, now we can add a user. We're going to create Jerry at mice.org. That's the email domain we're going to set up in our YAML file. And we're going to make him part of the admins group, create the user, set the credentials just so we can demo this out. In order to use the new provider, go back to web app, under the clients, under credentials, get the client secret. The client ID is web app. And now we're going to add it to tenant.yaml. So we're going to say mice client ID, web app, client secret, paste in what we got from Keycloak, realm, mice, email domain, mice.org. Save. With this done, without restarting the page, we can go back to here, log in as Jerry at mice.org, sign in. It took us directly to the mice realm, password. And there you have it. New tenants defined at runtime, configured in Keycloak without restarting or redeploying the app. Thank you for watching.